Okay guys, I'm going to show you how to do a rebuild on a Webasto. It would be 4500 or 5500 or a 40 EVO or 55 EVO. They're pretty much the same thing, just different electronics inside. So forgive me, I'm doing this in the back of my Jeep because, well, I live on a boat and I don't want to do this on the boat. It'll make a mess. So first thing we want to do is take the housing apart. So you want to get this guy off, which is your bottom seal. This actually does have a function. It seals gas in here, which is good because you don't want that going in the cabin. This is the fuel pump, power and signal. You can see I've got this repaired several times. I've probably broken this unit down at least 10 times so far and redone it. They only seem to make it about one season before needing a rebuild. All right, so next step is you pop the electronic connector cover off. And then what you're looking for on these caps are these little tabs. I'm gonna grab yourself a trim tool, just pop that under there and leave it there. Then come to the other side and do the same thing so you can get the whole thing to release. And that will give you your actual fan. I can hear that. I don't know if you can hear that squealing, but that's just dust and debris buildup from time. Same thing with the other side. You want to take this bad boy and flip it over. Get your trim tool up under there, loosen it up. Same thing on the other side. Sometimes it wants to fight you. Take that off. That's the heat sink. In my particular case, I got plenty of cat hair in there. All right, first thing you want to watch out for are these spacers. They'll fall off and you'll get lost, so make sure you put them in a good spot to keep. Now the top will just lift off, no problem. Probably going to have a lot of dust and stuff in there. You want to clean that out, give it a whack. Probably don't want to use chemicals, just because that'll actually cause dust to stick after you put it back together. As you see, these spacers are on the back end. Now this guy, you got to kind of pull out and lift up. And that's the lower half of the case. You can see just the age and scorch marks on this, guys. I mean, I can't tell you how many hours I got on this thing. It's ridiculous, way over its service life. There's the other two. All right. So first order of business is we're gonna take this fan off. Now I recommend that you buy a replacement whenever you're taking this thing apart. You see all the dust buildup in there? A new one's not gonna have that, and these things are like $5. So instead of trying to clean that out, just buy a new one. What you wanna do is take a flat blade and put it in this groove here and give it a twist while you're pulling up from the bottom. What you're trying to do is release the little lip. Doesn't always want to come easy, but it'll come. Promise you it'll come out. Come on, stop fighting. Let's go. All right, there we go. So what you don't really see, but you see that the dust, this creates drag slows down the motor, starts whining, starts messing with the bearings. Hear that? Now, that usually only happens when the fan spins in reverse. So spinning the right way, there's no noise. So really, the motor's fine, but it's probably towards the end of its life. So at this point, if I was going to replace that, I would do it now. It's not really that hard. You can buy it as an assembly. Next piece, you want to take off the control board, which is this black piece here. This is what you plug your whole wiring harness into. So just keep mindful of your plugs. They are keyed, but they can be confused and not seat properly, even though it feels like they are. So they got little lips on them. You can just pop them out. All right. So you got to go to both sides. There's fan control. There's a sensor. There's glow plug control. And also overheat sensor. So getting all these guys loose. So just in case you're wondering, this is your overheat. That's the temp sensor that's on the housing in case you overheat. This guy is the glow plug. It's yellow. This guy is your fuel pump. That guy is your flame mount. Goes in there. It's actually sitting in the combustion chamber. And then this red and black, that is your fan control. So, all right. So still got to take this off to get where I'm going. We got 2 screws. They are T15. Now, when you get a seal kit, or you're doing any of this, you're gonna want to not reuse these screws. They're not designed to be used more than once. That's kind of a German engineering thing. And they're not expensive to get a screw kit. And a lot of times they'll come with whatever component you're replacing. All right, so this is the control board. It's kept cool by the fan blowing over it. Of course, that builds up dust, gets a little grimy. This is the bulk of your expense right here in this unit. If these go bad, it's almost worth buying another one. And of course, there's magic voodoo in there, so unless you have the diagnostic tool, you really can't tell what's going on with one. I think right now, currently, they're somewhere around $600 to get one of these, if you can find them. All right, so this is going to give us the front end of the case. This is the fan motor. This is the intake. That's the fuel meter pump. That's why the wire comes out. You see this just kind of passes through and goes down here. You have to buy a kit that, some of them come either wired or not wired. Don't be afraid to wire it if it's cheaper. It's really not hard at all. You just pop this thin little guy out and just slide the wire through. Pretty simple. So again, we're looking at C15 all the way around the perimeter. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws. So I'm gonna go ahead and back those out. Now the reason I pulled this one out of service is because smoking real bad, and it would not stay lit. It was stinking up the boat because it was pushing smoke back through the intake. Basically what happens over time is all the crud that's in the diesel, no matter how much you filter it, it leaves deposits everywhere because diesel is meant to explode and not burn. So it leaves behind a lot of grossness, carbon, soot, that sort of thing. And you'll see that in a second. In relation to the screws, Germans do not design seals very well. Their seals are always as thin as they could possibly be, with no error for margin for error, excuse me, because Germans like to push it right to the bloody edge. So anytime you're working on anything German, you got to take a seal apart, replace it, because it is not gonna hold up. All right, so that's the fan motor. Just kind of slides out there. You can see here I've Had to clip off that connector and butt joint it many times. There's plenty of wire to do that. So here's your fan assembly. Oh, there goes all the screws that I'm not reusing. Let's say one more. There it goes. This is the turbine that actually compresses air. This is the back side of it. This little guy right here is a heat shield. If you mar it or something, it's not the end of the world. You might think it is, but it's not. As you can see here, there's the paper gasket that's on the back side of this. I want to get that off of there. We do not want to reuse that. I'll tell you this, yeah, this guy is already fused on. So you just run your pick slowly along and it will release. Now this rebuild will probably work for all of the smaller units like the 2000. Just smaller, it's all the same design. They just kind of scale them up. So that's the paper gasket that seals the two halves together. We're gonna discard that. We're gonna put our fan assembly aside. If you buy one of these, currently at about 300 bucks, you may get a lot of fan errors and think you need a fan, but usually you don't. It's usually a power error, not a fan error. The fan will draw down too much amperage because the glow plug is shorting out, and it'll give you a fan error, not a glow plug error. So that can really confuse you and you spend a lot of money you don't want to. All right, so next up is our actual burner assembly. This is a spring plate, holds it down. Again, T15. Those guys really bite into the aluminum, so be prepared for a little resistance. But again, you should be getting another kit, and you're going to want to chuck those. One thing to notice before you take it apart, this little guy holds the wire back away from the burner. This is the flame detector, and these are your glow plug wires. You want to make sure that they're not really touching anything either. Of course, they will be once we take it all apart, but when we put it back together, we want to get it like this. Get that spring plate off of there. All right, so the screw kit comes with a new one. The heat will deform them over time, so they'll start to lose their tension. This is a good idea to replace them, even though they look fine. I tell you, this little clip, this thing is a pain in the butt. Don't lose it. I don't even know if you can buy it separate. All right, so now we got our screws out. That's the fuel injector. Now that injector comes out, it's connected directly to the input. The heater controls the fuel input via the pump. Has no metering valve or anything like that. It just activates the pump, feeds fuel, done. Really simple. So we're gonna have to get these guys out of our way here. So best thing to do, if you have one of these or a different type of tool, don't use the sharp edge, use that edge and push in. All right, and then you can see that it comes out the back side. All right, and just feed the connector through. And just slide that out, and that's the flame sensor. Pretty basic, just a ceramic thermistor. So nothing special, but very expensive for some reason. All right, so next up is going to be our burner, and our burner held in there via pressure. You just grab it and you pull up on it. So the trick is you're going to be fighting this piece of rubber right here. Now the new one comes with a new piece of rubber, so if you got to stick the prong in there to get it out, stick it in there and get it out, because we don't need it anymore. The next hurdle is the glow plug. These wires get really stiff, so you got to be careful. The thing to do really is actually this clip right here. If you could see that, holds the glow plug in place. If it's not fused in place, you might be able to pop it off. I don't think you guys can see that. All right, so I'm just gonna go the long way. I'm just gonna push the glow plug grommet through and feed the connector back through the housing. Voila, everything's loose. You just gotta walk that out, and there's the burner. So what you see going on here is it's the coke buildup. And what will happen is this stuff will line up and lay against the glow plug, and it'll smoke it. And it won't get the actual burner section. I guess it's really just like compressed steel wool. It won't allow it to ignite. And then on top of that, this guy sucks up fuel, so it turns into like this little fuel coke pod. Anyway, it makes black smoke, it stinks, the heater will flame out, it's a mess. I did not buy a burner with a new glow plug because it's $100 more. So I'm gonna save this glow plug. So I'm gonna take that out right now. I'm gonna knock this stuff out. So what you wanna do is this little clip right here, you just kind of gotta push it off. And then it just comes out. The kit will come with a new one. And just give this guy a little wiggle. Voila. So that's our discarded burner. Not much we can do with that. Don't be fooled by the Chinese replacement units. These things are stamped together. You can't replace them. I mean, you could, but you better have to, to machine it. The labor's not really worth it. All right. So the glow plug, very simple. It's just a piece of resistance metal. Has this little asbestos washer on there. You want to take that off. Don't think you got to buy any one of these. These are really dumb pieces of equipment. There's nothing fancy to them. Just sand the coke off. I mean, the chances of one of these going bad is like really slim. But if you're in a mad hurry to replace everything, I could understand buying one with the burner already attached to it. So anyway, that's it. It's clean, done, voila. All right, I'm gonna set this aside. I'm gonna take a look at what's going on inside of the housing, and just put your thumbs down in there and pull up. I got a loose screw in there, so you can see inside there's some cracking. Take a look at that. That could be a problem. And it looks like this guy's getting done. So see the cracking in there from the heat? So the metal is actually starting to split. That's why this is white. So that might put me in a spot right here. I might have to rebuild this faster than I want to. So there's some coke buildup right here, and I just want to knock it off and then just tap it out. I'm going to proceed with the rebuild. I could probably take my spare unit and take the housing out, but I need to get another one because that crack will eventually spread and then split. Not the end of the world, but definitely not efficient like it should be. All right, so inside the heatsink, I don't know if you can see that with the light, but you can see it's kind of coked up and built up with crud. So since I'll be taking this apart again here shortly, I'm not going to clean this. So usually I clean it with brake clean and manually scour it down. So a fair amount came out. There was a big coke plug down at the bottom. Again, I've probably used these things beyond their serviceable hours. So really shouldn't be reusing it, but you know, I'd like to be warm, so I'm going to. All right, so on the back side of this guy is an O-ring that comes with the reseal kit. Got to replace that. If that's not there, you might end up with gas leaking into the compartment. You don't want that. You just clean your channel, make sure the crud's out. All right. So now we just got to go back in reverse. This is a seal kit. There's a part number. You can see it says 5,000, 3,500, 5,000, but it also does Evo 55 and Evo 40, which the only difference between the two is the electronic controller. So pretty sneaky. Okay, so I'm just gonna lay this back in there. It's got a nice little channel, so it'll just stay there. We don't have to fuss with it to get it in the hole. I didn't want a seat. And it's fussing a little bit. It's like it wants to roll out. It keeps coming back out here. Oh, all right. So probably because it's been out in my shed, it's cold. Doesn't want to stretch to where it's supposed to be. So I'm just gonna heat it up with my body heat. Get a little rub down. And yep, voila, it's in the hole. So we're immediately gonna stamp that down. Your flame sensor, make sure that goes towards the bottom. It is keyed, so you really can't screw it up, but put your fingers down in it like this. You can just drop it down. Oh, that damn gasket jumped out. All right. Okay. All right, so next up is our burner. That's brand new. You can see here where it's been crimped down. So you might be able to get this E-ring out. I've never been successful dropping in a new one. I haven't had a lot of luck with it, so I just get a new one. All right, we want to put our glow plug back in. So it should come with this kit, new asbestos ring and new clip. Oops, I almost lost it. All right, so asbestos ring first. Just slide it through the hole. Don't worry about the position because it does spin. And then the E-clip just snaps down over top of it and holds it in place. Sometimes it does, you gotta get it in the channel or it doesn't wanna, it's pretty tight to really get it in there. Once you get it started, it'll get on there, but it'll let you know what you're trying to do. Yeah, that's giving me a hard time. Spinning around in here, see if I can get anywhere. I don't think it matters which way you come with it, but yeah. It is definitely not something you can get done with your fingers. All right, there it goes. All right, so I use a flat blade and just push down. Now it's locked in. It has the slightest little air gap between the burner and the glow plug. And now we want to get this guy back in. So first thing, orientation. I spin the glow plug to the right orientation. Your hole, make sure you're coming out the right hole. Feed your line back through. All right, and then you got to get the actual fuel inlet in. It takes a little twisting and walking to get it to go through. And then once it's down, the next trick is to get the burner seated without pinching the wires. And again, it's just a pressure fit. So it just kind of snaps into the housing. So you're going to come out with the fuel line here. You got to get this grommet seated. And then this will slide on the wires a little bit, but we're going to get this bit down and then we're going to set these. So again, try not to use a pointy end. Get as close as you can with your fingers and then just start walking it around with the flat side. This one is actually the hardest because it's blind on one side and you can't see what you're doing and you don't know if it's actually seated or not. It doesn't really sit flush, it kind of sits. All right, hey, that one jumped in, that's nice. All right, so there is, that guy's seated. We want to get our other wires set up. So this cat, our flame sensor, that fed through. And it's gonna get that guy in the hole. And that just kind of lays there. Everybody's happy, just laying in place. Now we want to get our spring clamp on. And this is where our new screw kit's going to come into play. Now, oddly enough, all of these screws are identical, except for two of them are slightly longer, probably like 2 millimeters longer. And those two hold in the computer. So you just gotta kind of sort through and find them. When you got them in your hand, you'll be able to tell. But when you pull them out, it's just very hard to tell. There's one. And there's the other. You can see such a slight difference. But those two hold in the computer. The other guys are all the same, holding the housing together. All right, our tension spring. This is going to go over the flame sensor, and this will go across the burner, like this. And it is not going to seat, and it's not supposed to. All right, so trick, put your screw on, put your finger on the head, and then you can get them lined up in the holes a little easier than trying to feed it in with two fingers. So just kind of loosely put them in. See? Just get them started. All we're trying to do is get everybody lined up so we can seat it all. All right, so I got the 4 in. I'm gonna go hand snug, cross pattern. Remember, we're seating that O-ring. We don't want to pinch that or make a mess. We're also seating the burner and the sensor down. So we gotta be very even when we put this guy together. So I'm on my 4th screw. That's about a 45-degree turn to tight, and then I'm just going to reverse it. All right, so one of the reasons you're replacing the screws is because these bite into the aluminum, and this is important for replacing the screws. I'm sure they have a torque spec, but I'm American and I don't believe in that. So voila. All right, so now we gotta put in our grommets, and again I said these will slide on the rubber. So if you think your positioning is wrong, it's okay. Just get your grommet in. It's best to start from the bottom. Again, use the flat side. And just work your way around. And then that's good. I mean, you can see it's pretty tore up from doing it multiple times, but still works. All right, same on this guy. Kind of rest the bottom in first and then push the tops in. That one walked out on me, so I gotta start over again. Yeah. The bottom in. I think this one's probably on its last rebuild. Oh, yep, went right through. All right, well, we're on this side. We'll try this side. This guy's really fighting me. All right, there we go. So seat it, seat it, seat it, seat it. Good. Spring tension's good. Sensors lined up. Our next thing is we want to get these wires off of here as much as possible. So the issue that I found is when you go to plug this in is it can spin the wires. So you got to make sure that you're a good ways off from touching everything before you put it back together, so you can spin it and see how it's not touching. So that's kind of what our goal is. All right, so that's the new burner, and we're going to go backwards with our fan. Remember, we got to put that new paper gasket on. The simplest way is to just lay it so you're not trying to hold it on. It is keyed. There are little knobs for alignment. Let's see if I can get it right. Probably not. There it is. All right. So, paper gasket. All right. So what you want to do, take your fuel pump wires, feed them through. All right. And that should just lay right down in there. Those same alignment pins for the gasket will line up your fan. So again, we want to finger start our screws, just get them going. And you want to work in a crisscross fashion. You want to go from snug to 45-degree tight. You'll feel these things cutting into the aluminum, and that's okay. That's good. It's giving you positive pressure. Now if one of them spins or strips out, Bad news, gotta buy a new housing. So do need to be a little gentle. You can do this with a ratchet, but more chance that you're going to apply too much pressure, that or use like a screw gun or something, you could get yourself into trouble. Probably better to do it by feel, and it's really not much slower. All right, so my last one, bottomed out, 45. Okay. All right, see, I'm coming across. What I'm trying to do is close it down evenly so we don't get a bubble, which is totally possible. And then I'm just going to come back around and check everybody's got good torque, because as the aluminum flexes under the torque, it's going to change how it feels seated with the screws. So, okay, I think this guy might be stripped out, but again, I'm gonna have to replace that burner cup, so probably have to get a new housing too. We use 2 units on board. We keep a third one as a spare, so I'll probably just pilfer that from those guys. One of the cheapest way to maintain these is to buy a unit off of eBay from Turkey. They're usually only like $1,000 bucks, but just for the unit, and then use that for parts. That way you'll have a replacement everything. All right, next up we're gonna get our PCM back on. I guess it's not really a powertrain control modules. It's more of just a control unit. So what I find is, before screwing it onto its mount, it's easiest to go ahead and seat the wires. Like I said, they are keyed, and you'll feel them pop in. Sometimes they want to fight you a little bit. And again, it's easy to screw it up. Just to where what goes where, especially the fuel control to the housing temperature sensor. They're very, very, very similar. So I got the 4 on the back side, they're in. This guy's not in yet, that kind of comes up here and goes in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and shoot my screws in. Okay, so that's mounted in place. I get this guy up into its position, which is oddly on top for whatever reason. And we want to make sure that our wires are down in the channels, because the vibration can cause them to rattle. That's annoying. All right, so next up, we want to put our housing back on. To do that, gotta make sure we're putting our spacers in place. Don't drop them. All right, we're gonna do the bottom first. There's a little lip here. Just snap those on. And we're gonna grab our bottom, feed the wire through. They do have alignment pins, but again, you want to open it up so you're not knocking your spacers off, and then come down and it'll clip on. So that's that cat. All right, and then we're going to go to the top, put our spacers on here. The top piece of the clamshell is held specifically in place by the caps, so this thing can fall out on you when you just lay it in. It's got a little groove it goes into, but it does not snap in. It's just kind of laying there. So next thing you want to do is make sure you don't mix up what's forward and what's rear. What forward has the camberford inlet for the fan. There's a groove that the fan sits in. This one does not, so that's the rear. It doesn't really matter up or down, it just got to go on there. So I'm just gonna slide it on, clip it in place, and then voila. All right, so lined up more or less. Yep. These guys don't really sit very well. Surprising for a German design. There. You see here, like this doesn't line up right. So, whatever. Guess they were drinking on Friday. All right, time for our new fan. This is keyed, and this is keyed too, but it's hard to see in there. So you just want to line that up best you can, and it snaps on, and then voila. All right. So, all right, knock some of the dust out of this. All right, and then we're just gonna pop this bad boy right on top. All right, we're just gonna check our fan here. Sounds like it's grabbing something. You hear that? So that'll kill your fan motor. So we gotta check to make sure that we don't have a problem. So I'm gonna take this back off and see if I can figure out what's dragging. Sometimes it's wires underneath. I mean, it should free spin like that. Looking for dust and dirt. Let's see. Sometimes repositioning it is all it takes, but you just want to make sure it's not biting. Yeah, see, it's already grabbing there. So I'll try it this way. There she is. All right, good, got it lined up. So it doesn't have an up or down, just you have to try. And you want to be able to just finger spin it. That means it's on its bearings and it's good to go. All right, so she's ready to go back in. So I'll mount it back in. I'll replace these before I get there. I'll have them ready to go and just crimp them on and solder them down. I gave up trying to use the connector over and over again. I just butt splice them on and it's done. So that pretty much sums it up. Hope you learned something. If you got any questions, feel free to ask me. If you are a long-term liveaboard, I would actually highly recommend that you do not buy these. They require so much effort. They're very finicky. Probably good on a bus, but not on a boat. So we're actually looking at switching over to the hydronic, and you know, it depends. We might get another boat too. So if we get another boat, we might do a whole nother heating system. Haven't figured that out yet. Anyway, enjoy. Have a good day.